Welcome to another episode of Yappy Hour. I poured myself a drink and we're ready to have a chat. We've moved the time, no longer Fridays at 3 o'clock. We're taking up Wednesdays at 8 o'clock now because, God, we've got kids and we've got to do shit and pick them up. So welcome. I'm Jo Taranto. I'm co-founder of Good for the Hood, crazy passionate about people and planet, and I'm really excited because I want to tell you a little bit about Good for the Hood and who we're talking with today. Good for the Hood is a social enterprise which is absolutely driven to get people fired up to care about their community and the planet around them. We love giving people tools and tips and inspiration to get started. And today is a woman who got started in a big way. We've got a beautiful guest joining us any second. Her name is Rachel Draper, and she has been involved in everything from volunteering to clean up beaches to working with amazing startups, taking on the world when it comes to fast fashion. And now she's working with container deposit schemes around Australia. Absolutely my pleasure to welcome the gorgeous Rachel Draper. Here's my drink, and here she is. Absolutely stoked. Rachel's joining us today from Sydney. Welcome, Rachel. There she is. Hello.
Hey, sorry. Cheers. Cheers.
Welcome to Yappy Hour, and thank you. What was that?
What's your drink of choice?
Oh, I'm having a Glenfiddich, which is a single malt whiskey.
Oh, yeah. Very fancy.
What are you having? You having a nice red?
A nice red, nice glass of Malbec.
Delicious. And where are you joining us from today, Rach?
I am in North Bondi, my little hub where I've been working from home for the last 10 weeks or however long it's been now, as everyone has been in lockdown. So it's been my little sunroom at the back of my apartment I've converted into my at-home office for the time being.
It looks amazing. It looks like you're about to get eaten by a palm tree or a palm there, but...
Well, I do strategically, the plant is loving it. I've strategically placed it because I'm just in non-stop Zoom meetings at the moment. But I've changed the position but yeah, you can see in the background some lovely photos by Harriet Spark from Grumpy Turtle on the wall there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Love Harriet's gorgeous photos. Check her out if you haven't had a look at Grumpy Turtle design. She's pretty magical. Welcome. Thank you so much. I just gave a little bit of a shout out then, told the world about all of the amazing things that you've been involved in, well, some of them. Yeah, you kind of are one of those crazy eco nerds that just keep getting involved in stuff. So tell us about all of the things that you started out as volunteer work, I understand.
Yeah, I did. So I moved to Australia 8 years ago and moved to the eastern suburbs, wanting to live by the beach, moving from South London in the UK. I wanted to live the Australian dream and live by the beach. So I was one of those stereotypical pommies that moved to Bondi. and I got a job working in marketing in Rose Bay, and on my lunch breaks I was lucky enough to walk along Rose Bay Beach, and I saw in the winter time all the rubbish that was washing up, and I was one of those kind of angry community members that felt it was the responsibility of council to be doing a better job. So I kind of had this big idea of organising a clean-up for this, to make this big pile of rubbish to show council what they should be doing. So I reached out to Tim Silverwood from Take 3 because I saw, he was doing cleanups, and I'll be honest, I don't even know how I heard about them. I think just from the awesome Bondi community. It's, I was lucky to move into a community that was very active, in the environmental space and very responsible. And he put me in touch with Justin from Responsible Runners, and I ended up organising my own weekly beach cleanups. And I soon learned that it, as much as council do have a role to play, we also have responsibilities of users of the beach and community members to not only take 3 and pick up our own rubbish, but also to look at what we're consuming and reduce the consumption. So it actually kind of paved the way into my passion of caring about the environment and trying to create behaviour change, and then moved into tackling it from the source and responsible cafes and organising clothes swaps, and now working in marketing container deposit schemes.
Wow, you've got the trajectory of every good volunteer environmentalist, which is wonderful. So you work with responsible cafes, and we've seen that obviously reuse and the whole message about, you know, bringing your own cup and BYO is tricky at the moment, and it's something that we're having to come up against, which I don't think we would have anticipated 6 months ago. Tell us about what responsible cafes do, and we're obviously going to check in with the gorgeous Jo. She doesn't know that yet, but from Responsible Cafes in a few weeks, hopefully.
For sure.
She'll be keen to hear more about, you know, their mission, and but you were involved pretty early on when it got quite hectic. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Responsible Cafes is a sister initiative of Responsible Runners. So it was from seeing the typical rubbish we were finding at these beach cleans was coming from cafe waste. It was, you know, how can we start tackling this from the source and stopping people using this, you know, the single-use plastic in the first place. And one of the wonderful volunteers of Responsible Runners, I definitely cannot take any credit for it, had the idea of, you know, to encourage people to bring reusable coffee cups for a cafe to offer an incentive, so you get a discount off your coffee. So it grew pretty quickly. It started in Bondi, and you know, and it started with a guy in the team at Google, and he had this idea of, you know, why don't we start mapping cafes that offer a discount, and then it might encourage people to go out their way to these cafes. And you know, and it was so grassroots of community groups knocking on cafes' doors saying you should be doing this, and we had, you know, voluntary designers working on some awesome things like posters and stuff to help the cafes really celebrate what they were doing, because, you know, it's quite a chunk of money out of their profit margin to be doing it. So you know, we had about 400 cafes, and then it and I got involved in it from runners, and then be like, okay, you know, it's getting a bit fed up of doing just cleanup, so I wanted to do a little bit more and start putting some of my expertise into play. So then we got mentioned on More on Waste, and we went from 400 cafes to 3,000 cafes in a matter of weeks. So it's kind of bringing together all the skill set of anyone involved with Responsible Cafes. You know, how can we manage this inbox? How can we manage the map? It was amazing.
And that was on the back of that iconic image of Craig Rucastle in a tram filled with coffee cups. That's what I'm
exactly right. Yeah, and it's literally like a 10-second bit where he shows about using a reusable coffee cup, and it says find cafes near you at this website. It's the smallest bit, but it just showed how people were looking for solutions and looking for options. And it really was perfect timing. More on Waste is, you know, we could speak about half an hour or More on Waste, but it just showed people were looking, and they did want to make a change. So, you know, Responsible Cafes was just this easy solution out there for both the businesses wanting to celebrate what they were doing and help tell their customers they were doing the right thing, and customers making responsible decisions. And I mean, yeah, now we're nearly at 5,000 cafes, and you know, and Jo, as you'll be speaking to at some point, has made some amazing, you know, growth opportunities with the community group that we are. But yeah, with COVID, it's been tricky. I mean, obviously, I have to put my hands up and say I have drunk from single-use coffee cups during COVID. And it was, you know, my local cafes just weren't accepting reusables. And I kind of went through this internal debate of, you know, do I, you know, I'm so privileged that I have to have this takeaway coffee. I could make it at home. I cannot make good coffee at home. It was hard to adjust working from home. And I was like, also, if I stop buying takeaway coffees, I'm then not helping these local businesses. So I definitely don't condone it by any means. But yeah, Jo and the awesome volunteers at Responsible Cafes have been putting out some really awesome advice to help cafes. So again, works so well with that initiative is it's supporting the businesses as well as the customers. So there's always, you know, we always had our keen beans and our cafes to communicate to, And that's something that I loved, working with responsible cafes. And hey, if the money was there, I'd be working with responsible cafes all the time. But, you know, everyone was there pretty much voluntarily. So I then grew out of that. But yeah, COVID has been a struggle from both the customer point of view and the cafe's point of view.
And one of the other challenges that you kind of embarked to take on was that of fast fashion. And that also sort of was inspired by what you saw on, you know, those mounds of clothes on Warren Waste. Tell us about what you did when it came to clothes swaps as well. Because you were a busy bee.
So I was a busy bee, and I mean, I'm a prime case study of volunteer fatigue as well. But I watched War and Waste, and I was like, you know, I was kind of at that stage where I like op shopping. I do like going to op shops, but you've really got to be in the right mood. You've got to be happy to walk in and just look through all these rails. And I'm lucky enough in Bondi, we have one of the best op shops I've been to, Wayside Chapel. And it doesn't feel like an op shop. It's beautiful. It's not like racks and racks of clothes. And op shops have got a bad rap. You know, you think of them as old people's clothes that have been donated, but there's just some really good finds. And I was like, you know, I'm not going to be the only one that doesn't want to look through rails. And a lot of my friends are pretty similar to me, whereas I'm not like it's a new night out, I'm going to go and buy a new outfit, or, you know, and I kind of wear clothes until they are threadbare and I probably can't even donate them. So I was like, you know, I'm going to organise a clothes swap in my local community. I was, you know, Bondi's pretty, you know, into that space, in that mindset, and you know, the eastern suburbs, people have some good clothes. So I thought I'd organise a community clothes swap, and I wanted to do it very chilled and relaxed, just as a picnic at Centennial Park. And I just did a Facebook group and kind of shared it on a few buy swap sell pages. And the first one, over 70 people came, and it was it was amazing. But again, it showed, like, with responsible cafes, people were looking for other options. You know, people want to make these responsible changes and responsible decisions. They don't really know where to go. And I organised, so I ended up doing another one, I think a month or two later. And a lady from City of Sydney came, and she was like, oh, what do you do when it rains? And this was in the height of summer. And I was like, oh, do you know what? This is my second one. I haven't really thought about that. And she's like, well, you know, we can offer you our community centre for free. You're doing an amazing thing for the community. So it then grew, and I did a couple there. And at each one I did at the centre. So it was at Juanita Nelson Community Centre in Woolloomooloo. I wanted to do something else to educate people when they were there. So the first one I did, I had a volunteer from Tees to Totes there, showing how you can not only swap clothes, but you can change unwanted clothes and like the threadbare clothes where mine get into something else. And then the next one I had, again, someone else volunteering their time of how to do small alterations. So, you know, she's an amazing costume designer, of how to sew and how to sew on a button and things like that. And again, I had so many people coming to each of them. It was amazing, but as I say, it got to volunteer fatigue, but it felt like a full-time job. It was getting that way, and I just had these kind of high expectations of people of, you know, when are you going to put the next one on? And I was like, oh, I'm kind of doing this in my spare time. And yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I can relate a lot to that, and I hear it a lot, and I'm sure you're the same. That, you know, people who are passionate about an issue want to give their time, and I think that there's a peak period in which they have a lot to give, and then there's a period at which they either need to turn the exercise into some sort of self-sustaining thing where they can earn money out of it as well, so that they can do it full-time or thereby full-time, or they have to pull back. And it's tough, right? And it can lead to a bit of burnout.
It does. And I mean, I've also managed volunteers going through it too. And I think it's always important, you know, if you're the person looking for voluntary work, to kind of have that conversation with someone at the beginning and be like, you know, we just value, you know, really value the time that you're offering, but don't expect it to be too much. You know, we, again, with responsible cafes as an example, but I have it with the cleanup as well, of people to come and offer and have all these big ideas of how you could grow it and, you know, rebrand it, and it just becomes too big, and and that's when you can burn out quite quickly. So and I'm the prime example with the clothes swaps, is, you know, I was like, then I had this pressure of finding a workshop to do every time, and people to help me. I needed volunteers because, as it grew, I needed people to come and help me. So I think the lesson I took from that was I then stopped doing the beach cleanups, and I only did the swaps every 3 months, 4 months. I now haven't done one, I'll be honest, from over a year, because I got a full-time job, which is very demanding and and very time consuming, so I wasn't really giving them myself that time. So it's challenging, and your passion can make you burn out pretty quickly, I think.
So tell us about this wonderful full-time job now, because it's not in a different. Often we hear people go, "Oh, well, I've had to give up that, and I'm now working in finance." But you actually have a job where you're working full-time, but you are helping our planet as well. Can you tell us a bit about what you do now?
Yeah, so I did. I had a full-time job at the time, and I'll be honest, I did still love it, but I just kept an eye out for jobs that fitted right with me, had a good purpose, and I'd only really apply for jobs that kind of sat with my moral compass, if you like. But it's so I work for a company called Tomra, and we invented and supply the reverse vending machines for container deposit schemes such as Return and Earn in New South Wales. So it's to it's to help governments as well as customers. So we kind of had the two customers to ensure a container deposit scheme is successful, to offer convenient solutions to a government introducing a container deposit scheme to ensure people do participate, and the back end, making sure there's clean streams of material, low contamination, to make the recycling process a lot easier. So with a container deposit scheme, which for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's when you can get 10 cents back from drink containers. So you've probably seen for years, because of South Australia, there's been a 10-cent label on bottles and cans, and it's typically beverage containers that are drunk out of homes that end up as litter. It's a litter reduction scheme in New South Wales, for example. When you have purchased it, there's been a deposit put on there. So if you return it to authorised return point, you get your 10 cents back. So with that legislation, the material has to be recycled. So even if it means, the glass is stockpiled for 2 months until there's enough to be bought, it has to be recycled. It can't end up in landfill. And because of the clean streams of material, there's a much higher chance of it being turned back into a bottle or can again. So with the Tomra technology, it can see if there's liquids in there, it can see if it's an eligible container, and it sorts it into the different material streams. So at the end, you get a bale of really high quality PET, for example, that can be recycled for food grade plastic, and it keeps plastic in what we call clean loop, but closed loop circular economy, to ensure that those materials don't end up in landfill and in our environment.
And I think I've known you for a little while. I think what I've noticed is that the time that you've worked in this industry, that you've actually become more excited about the prospects of what can be achieved, because you've sort of always said this is not just recycling, that this is the heart and soul of a circular economy, and is that sort of how you feel about the industry?
I do, and I think it's with the cleanups and everything, it was you just feel like you're fighting a never-ending war. As people are still going to drink from single-use coffee cups. They're still going to drink from a plastic bottle. As much as you want everyone to BYO, it's not going to happen in reality that everyone's going to. So there do need to be solutions in place for those materials. And I think it's the same with the reusable coffee cup, but with a container deposit scheme, a beverage container becomes a bit of a gateway for change. We found people start looking at litter with a value and seeing, waste as a resource. It changes behaviours everywhere else. So I think that's what I've definitely become passionate about, and that's what I've realised. That's where I want to direct my marketing background, is to communicating those solutions to people and reassuring them that if you do drink from a plastic water bottle, it's definitely better to drink from a reusable, put it in a container deposit scheme, and then at least you're keeping that material in the loop. Or, you know, if you're doing a beach clean and you find bottles, put them in a reverse vending machine so that the materials are recycled. Because again, I found that with cleanups is you're picking it up, putting it in a bag, and it's still not being recycled. There's still that missing piece of getting it into the right place.
I think it's absolutely crucial to where we're at. And how good would it be to do a beach clean? I haven't done any cleanups for a long time. I feel like that's actually something I'm missing in isolation.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking that for this weekend, because it's all over the news at the moment about all the waste that's washing up in Sydney beaches. So I'm like, I'm actually quite excited to go and do a beach clean this weekend, because you know it's going to make a big difference. And it's I mean, there's definitely still a place for beach cleans, and I will still always do them, but it's it is just one part of the puzzle.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions. I've been asking a lot of people these. Something that you're doing too much of in isolation?
Probably drinking wine would now be more fitting.
Zoom calls and drinking, yeah.
Exactly.
Something you're not doing enough of, apart from beach cleans.
Reading and exercise, which is, I feel like this was my one chance to do it, and I'm still not.
Fair enough. Someone that inspires you.
It's going to sound really lame, and she's going to hate me for saying it, but a good friend, Kath Leach from Catfish Creative, is always the first person that comes to mind with that question, because she has built a business on her passion and her expertise is something. She's always, you know, very thoughtful, and also makes being responsible and sustainable just feel so easy and like it's just a very natural thing to do, and guilt-free if you mess up.
Absolutely. And Kath was involved in the design of a lot of the Responsible Cafes materials, right, as well. So you can check out
and Responsible Runners,
as well. So yeah, absolutely. And Kath Leach actually designed our Good for the Hood logo as well. So and a lot of our materials. So yeah, I can absolutely attest to that. If you run a startup, a volunteer group, someone that does anything for the planet, and you need some design work, can't say enough beautiful words about Catfish Creative and Kath Leach. So there you go. There's a plug. What's the first thing you're going to do when restrictions enter? What are we up to? Stage 2, 3, whatever we're up to.
2, 3. I'm not sure either. I can't wait to go to a bar with live music and dance and have a drink with friends. I mean, it's nice that we can go to restaurants, but it's still just missing that vibe. I just miss that vibe, I think.
Who knew the arts was so important?
I know.
All right. Some advice for someone who's looking for a career with the environment.
I would say volunteer with a few different community groups that are working in different areas. It can definitely feel a bit overwhelming, you know, the issue of climate change and the environment. So I think you've got to choose your one area that you can divert your passion to, and, you know, choose your moral compass. So, you know, whether it's fast fashion, or if it's reusables and plastic usage, or you know, planting crayweed and all these awesome things out there. I would say to volunteer with a few of them, to really find out which one you do and you really enjoy, so you don't get that volunteer fatigue, and then you can work out how to apply your skills and, you know, and adapt. And I think, you know, don't take for granted what you know, because that was for me. When it wasn't until I started at Trauma, I kind of really realised everything I learned from volunteering alongside a degree and my job, it just kind of all fitted together. And it's you take for granted of the knowledge that you get from caring about the environment, and it's really valuable to people. You know, more and more companies are caring about it, so and more of these jobs are coming out there.
And lastly, some self-care tips. We've talked about burnout and volunteer fatigue and isolation. What's your tip to stay sane when you're doing something for someone else or for your community?
I would just say don't set your own expectations too high. Of, you know, I gave the example earlier of you know, you can volunteer with an initiative and have all these big and wonderful blue sky thinking ideas, and it's not realistic. So, you know, take each step at a time, and if you start to feel tired and burnt out, it's okay to be like that. You know, I felt kind of obliged to go to these weekly beach cleans after a full week at work, and you know, and I was like, and it took a lot for me to say, you know, sorry, I'm actually not going to come this weekend. So, but it's okay to do that. That's the thing with volunteering. You are volunteering your time. It's not a commitment that you've got to make. I mean, said committed completely, but just don't be so hard on yourself.
Great advice. And look, thank you for all that you have done, from beach cleans to working with reuse and, you know, fast fashion and now container deposit schemes. It's been absolutely lovely to see your career blossom, and thank you so much for sharing, you know, your tips and thoughts, and we'll share a lot of those links below. And cheers, Rach. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jo. Catch up with you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.